The bizarre natural history of Australia and Capricorn Caves present a game of drones. When visiting the Capricorn Caves here in Queensland, please take the time to check out the Native Bee Hotel in the garden. Populating our hive at the moment are Australian stingless honeybees, also called sugar bag bees and even sweat bees, as they're known to land on people and drink their sweat during hot summers. Scientifically, these bees are called Tetragonula carbonaria, and though often called stingless bees, well, that's not entirely accurate. These bees do have a sting. They're just so tiny they don't really affect humans at all, though they have been known to bite if you annoy them too much. The sugar bag bee is a compact, dark-coloured bee between 3 and 5 millimeters in length. They also have hairy extended hind legs for carrying pollen, so are sometimes mistaken for bumblebees, which they may have evolved from, making them a sister group to true honeybees. As an Australian, the stingless bee loves warm weather, and are mainly found in the northern and eastern areas of the continent. In fact, they will not leave the nest if it's cooler than 18 degrees Celsius. And though you can keep them in cooler southern climates, it's suggested you never harvest what little honey they make, as they will need this resource during the winter months. Plus, opening their hive to get the honey lets cool air inside and can kill them. They produce sugar bag honey, which was highly prized by the Indigenous Australians, especially as the hive produces less than 1 kilo of honey per year, making this a rare treat. The Tetragonula are a group of 31 stingless bees located around Oceania, and to understand their evolution, we need to go back to the age of the dinosaurs. If you stood around the caves during the Cretaceous, around 120 to 66 million years ago, in many ways they would resemble the caves today. Sure, there are dinosaurs like Minmi, Muttaburrasaurus and Australovenator running around, while the oceans covering central Queensland to the west are swarming with giant marine reptiles such as Kronosaurus and Mosasaurs. But there are also numerous species like crocodiles that are considered common today. Grass and flowers had recently evolved, and with them pollen-collecting species like the bees. The oldest bee fossil known was trapped within amber from this time, and though it's clearly a bee, it still retains features from the insects all bees evolved from. It seems strange, but flower-pollinating bees and their cousins the ants evolved from predatory wasps called sphecoids. These are known to hunt insects like spiders and lay their larvae inside the still-living animals, which they use as a food source. The switch from predator to pollinator may have resulted from one group of wasps catching pollen-collecting insects for their larvae to consume. At some point, the wasps began relying more on the pollen these insects carried than the insect itself, and eventually they began harvesting the pollen directly. Here evolution kicked in, with those individuals with traits used for collecting pollen thriving and reproducing with greater and greater success and passing on those features to their next generation. With flowers evolving alongside flower harvesting insects, both groups exploded across the planet. Those early insects quickly adapted to these new environments, creating the vast numbers of bees and ant groups we know today. Some early bees adapted to communal hives for security, while others remained solitary like their wasp ancestors and lived in burrows and rotting trees. And we can see these various lifestyles in all the Australian bee species with us today. Most plants and animals evolve following a specific pattern, where the diversity increases towards the bountiful tropics and decreases towards the poles, as there are fewer resources there. Bees like to do things their own way, however, and they are an exception to this rule. Today they have fewer species near the equator and more towards the poles. The reason for this is simple. Forests like the ancient dry rainforest surrounding the Capricorn Caves have fewer flowers. It's the open, dry, arid environments like West Australia where bees are concentrated. Indeed, 800 of Australia's 2,000 species of native wild bees are from Western Australia. Though we should mention new bee species are being discovered all the time, so these numbers are sure to increase. Of 2,000 species, only 14 Australian bees are stingless, and of those 14, only 12 live in hives. And here is where things get interesting. In this video you can clearly see the entrance is not only guarded, it's well guarded by numerous workers who physically block the entire opening for protection. That's because the sugar bag bees, much like their close relatives the ants, go to war. To quote from a 2014 scientific paper, Bees at War, only one species of bee is currently known to engage in inter-colony battles that involve mass fatalities, and that is the Australian stingless bee, Tetragonula carbonaria. Well, recent investigations have shown that our own lovely sugar bees actually have a rival, and that their hives also come under attack by this closely related species, Tetragonula hockings. Both are known to attack their own kind as well as other species' hives and take them over. Back to the article. These battles are a spectacular phenomenon, with swarms of attacking and defending hives colliding mid-air and fighting bees falling to the ground locked in a death grip from which neither combatant survived. Workers, usually unproductive females, will grab an enemy and lock them in a death grip, and when such a war breaks out, it all comes down to the numbers. The swarm with the most soldiers to throw into battle will likely win, and they are so similar in features, the only way to know which species is in the hive after the war has ended is by the distinctive shape of their honeycombs. DNA tests show these two species diverged around 8 million years ago, and it's possible their warfare behaviour likely has to do with the evolving ecosystem of northern Australia. When bees first appeared, Australia was part of Gondwana and was a wide, lush region covered with thick vegetation. However, when the Ice Age took hold in the northern hemisphere, the growing ice sheets absorbed much of the fresh water from the southern continent, drying them out and creating the arid landscapes of Australia, South America and Africa we know today. This is why in Australia the Ice Age is actually known as the Big Dry, and one result of this flora retreat as the continent dried out is our dry rainforest. The resources the bees evolved around began to shrink, and so the bees possibly began going to war with each other during the lean years when there simply was not enough food to go around. This means not only is Australia known for its spiders and its snakes, the continent is now home to warring bees, playing out a Game of Thrones in our gardens and forests. And you get a nice close look at these bees when you visit the hive, on display here at the Capricorn Caves.